The official Switch controller can be sometimes a little bit too pricey for most people, when it averages between $70 to $100. And now them especially being mostly out of stock just about everywhere. So you might be eyeing a third-party controller, such as this one from Ralthy. The question is, how does it compare, and what's the build quality like? And does it feel just as good? Well, I hope to answer some of those questions. So let's talk about the specs. So apparently it charges in about 3 hours, and the playtime is somewhere between 5 hours and 7.5 hours, based on the average playtime that it says in the specs. Now, I know that the official one from Nintendo says that it can last up to 15 hours, so that might be a negative mark against this controller. But if you don't play for 15 hours at a time, once you're done with your play session, you can easily plug it in and not worry about it. So I'm not too concerned about that just yet. One cool thing is that it also does work with PC. You can either plug it in through the USB-C, or apparently you can also use it as a Bluetooth controller. Depending on what version of Windows you have, you may need to get the X360 driver. Moving on to build quality, it has a very nice rigid design without much creaking at all. Let's get that in there. I'm putting a lot of force to get those little creaks out of it, but just holding it doesn't really do it. For comparison, let's get the Xbox One controller side by side, which they do look a lot alike as far as shape and layout. So let me get this. Much more creaky in design. Not that that's a huge knock, but something that is a quality and first party controller, you would expect the quality to be a little bit better, but it's very creaky. Again, that doesn't bother me, but that might bother some people, since usually that makes it feel cheaper in the hand. The weight, it's fairly light, though not like it feels like it has nothing to it. It's a very light controller, although it still feels sturdy, which is nice. The ergonomics is good, fits my hands well. The trigger buttons here have a slight taper to them so that, you know, your fingers fit pretty well in there. The difference with the layout is, instead of having the screenshot button up here, they have placed it down here next to a turbo button, which I haven't quite figured out what that's for. I think it has to do with the rumble, the intensity of the rumble, although once we get into the actual connectivity test, I'll find out a little bit more there. I did play already a couple of minutes with it just to see if everything was working before I started recording, and it does work. The rumble itself, I will say, was very satisfying. A lot of times with these controllers, the rumble has like a rattling sound, and that can get a little annoying after a while, but this one was more of like a deep pulsing, and you don't hear it as much, but you do feel it, and it's pretty good. I like it. The thumbsticks, I will say, depend on your taste. So what they do is they have these slight indentations in them that have just so slightly of a rigid edge, which might be annoying to some fingers depending on how big they are and how they fit. If you get your fingertips right in there, they can have really good control. Now, the sticks themselves feel really good. They're not too rigid and they're not too loose. They're exactly how you would want it to feel and move, and I do appreciate that. I've had some third-party controllers that were pretty terrible with that, and these are really good. D-pad also feels really good, and the buttons feel exactly how you'd want them to feel. Now, let's go into a little bit. Sometimes sound is important to you guys with how the buttons sound, so I'll do a little bit of just the sounds. So here we have the right and left bumpers. Very clicky. The triggers. The thumbsticks. D-pad. And the YXAB buttons. Home button, plus and minus. Satisfying sounds, nothing too annoying sounding. I kind of failed to mention until now the price of this on sale right now is $36.99. Apparently the list price is $49.99, which still falls under the list price of the official Switch Pro controllers, which I think they're usually like 75 or 80 or so. So definitely a good price difference there to justify getting a third party. Okay, we've got our Switch hooked up and this paired pretty much instantly. I didn't have to do anything annoying to get it paired. I just turned it on. But your mileage may vary for that. Sometimes the Switch can be a little weird when it wants to connect. So this also does have motion controls. So I figured Splatoon might be a nice way to test this out. Oh, hey, look at that. Hey, I like that. That's actually easier than most of the controls. Did a good job. I like it. And everything seems to be pretty responsive. It's not exactly instantaneous, but neither are the Pro controllers. Like there's a millisecond or two off, which is, you know, not much to say. Okay, so I have added my Bluetooth dongle to the computer. I've never paired this wirelessly before. I do know that plugging it in through the USB-C works just fine, but I feel like most people are going to want to play it wirelessly. So let's turn it on and see if we can get it to connect. We'll try through Bluetooth device first before Xbox controller and see if that will sense it. There we go. Okay, now all four are blinking. So if you hold the home button just long enough, all four should start blinking. Oh, there we go, input. Let's try that. Alright, we've connected. Pro controller is set up and ready to go. That was actually very easy. So yeah, don't make the same mistake as me at the beginning where you just tap it to turn it on and then it searches for one that's already been connected to. Hold it long where all four lights blink. Okay, so I ran Need for Speed and that didn't detect the controller. I think because it was looking for an Xbox controller. So I went into Steam, not that Need for Speed's on there, but I went into Steam and they do have support for the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which I had to enable. And then it says detected controller, Nintendo Switch controller. So it does detect this as a Switch controller. Some games will be looking for an Xbox controller, so you may have to play with the settings beforehand. If you play on Steam, it looks like I'll be fine and dandy, but on Origin, where Need for Speed is, I didn't have that fortune. So let me see if there's something in the settings I can tick. Okay, so I went and changed the Steam settings to allow the Switch Pro controller, and now things are working fine. Okay, I'm playing a little bit of Rhyme now. It's an adventure game, and yeah, everything is very responsive. Everything responds exactly the way I would want it to. I actually have never played this game before, so this is kind of me opening it up for the first time. Very good. I'm impressed with this controller. I think it's an incredible buy for the money. Definitely priced very well, very competitively. The quality is great. The fact that I can use it on both PC and the Switch very easily is nice, and the fact that it charges by USB-C, which is more standardized USB connector now than all the others, is also nice. I know it costs more to be able to put USB-C into a device, so that is nice. So do I recommend it? Absolutely, 100%. Go and get yourself this controller. Link is in the description, and I'm gonna go back to playing video games. Bye.